50 Cent has been working on this documentary for almost 2 years. The footage he has is insane. The people he got speaking about Diddy is ridiculous.
No Diddy party. Are you watching the documentary on Netflix?
I don't watch it.
Hey, bro.
How crazy is it?
Yo, he's horrible.
Bro, he allegedly Pac and Biggie.
Bro, both of them.
And I believe it.
Both of them.
Bro, it's crazy.
Allegedly. Horrible.
But no one knew all this shit until the documentary came out.
It seems
I'm not gonna lie,
like
50 Cent is cooking, bro. My opinion,
Is
he's
that
cooking.
his doc?
Yeah, he produced it. He
Shut
produced it, I swear.
That was the one he was gonna call Did He Do It?
Yeah.
But it's called
Bro, I'm not even joking, bro. Like, you gotta watch it.
I got
Mysterious Circumstances Involving the Deaths of Both Tupac and Biggie.
And it makes sense, because you know why? Think about it, like, Biggie and Pac were really good friends, bro. Really good friends.
Also so sad.
Diddy didn't fuck with Tupac, because Pac didn't fuck with him.
They drove a wedge between them.
Yup.
And then the one day Biggie was supposed to fly to the UK for a press tour or like Europe or some shit. And Diddy was like, nah, we're not going to the UK. Like, this trip had been planned for weeks.
Yup.
He's like, nah, we're not going to the UK. Biggie's staying here. Biggie's like, I want to go to Europe. I want to go to Europe. He's like, nah, we're staying here. We're throwing a party.
Yup.
In California.
And Biggie wanted to leave Cali. He's like, bro, I want to get the fuck out of here. I don't feel safe here. Why am I here?
Went to the party, got fucking shot that night.
Okay, so let's just throw logic out the window for a second. Because what is actually going on right now? 1 minute the internet is chilling, arguing about random celebrity nonsense. And the next minute, BOON 50 Cent drops part 3 of his documentary like he's Thanos snapping half the industry into chaos. And not just any chaos. We're talking elite level, Hollywood shaking, group chat exploding drama involving names that don't just trend. They dominate headlines, because somehow, someway this situation now has Sean Diddy Combs and Jay Z being dragged into conversations that feel less like entertainment, and more like the plot of a Netflix series that should probably come with a warning label. Secrets? Hidden world? Exposed? Oh yeah, this isn't just content anymore, this is narrative warfare. And let's be honest, when 50 Cent gets involved, it's never quiet. This man doesn't hint at things. He doesn't suggest. He drops breadcrumbs, lights the match, and then watches the entire internet turn into a full-blown investigation team overnight. It's like he knows exactly how to push buttons in this time. He didn't just push one. He hit all of them because the second this documentary dropped, timelines went from calm to complete meltdown. Fans arguing, bloggers scrambling, reaction channels uploading faster than you can blink. It felt like the industry just got hit with a reality show finale, a courtroom drama, and a conspiracy documentary all at once. Now, here's the part that has everybody spiraling. Because this isn't just about what was said, it's about what was implied. Clips, edits, statements that don't fully explain themselves, but somehow say everything. The kind of content that makes you pause, rewind, and then immediately text your group chat like, nah, did y'all just see that? And the more people watched, the more questions started piling up. Because if even half of what's being suggested is real, then this isn't just a documentary. This is a grenade thrown into the middle of the music industry. To really understand why this documentary drop shook the internet the way it did, you have to rewind way back before part 3 ever existed. This isn't some random moment that just appeared out of nowhere. This is years of tension, subtle jabs, and quiet industry whispers finally bubbling up to the surface. And when something like that finally explodes, it doesn't just trend, it dominates everything. At the center of it all is 50 Cent. Someone who has built a reputation on never holding back. He doesn't move like other celebrities who try to stay polished and neutral. Instead, he leans into controversy, uses it as fuel, and somehow always finds a way to keep the spotlight exactly where he wants it. That's not luck, that's strategy. Then you have Sean Diddy Combs, a name that carries weight far beyond music. Decades of influence, business deals, and connections that reach into every corner of the entertainment world. But with that level of power comes years of rumors and stories that people have talked about quietly, never fully brought into the light until now. And of course, Jay Z enters the conversation and everything instantly feels bigger. He's not someone who engages in public drama often. He moves carefully, speaks less, and maintains control over his image in a way that few others can. So the moment his name even gets mentioned in something like this, people immediately pay attention. Now, here's where things start building up like the first episode of a series you know is about to get crazy. The earlier parts of this documentary already had people talking. Not loudly at first, but enough to spark curiosity. Little hints, vague statements, and moments that felt like they meant more than what was being said directly. The internet picked up on that energy fast. Fans started analyzing every detail, pausing clips, replaying lines, and trying to connect dots that weren't even clearly laid out. Bloggers began digging into past interviews, resurfacing old footage, and creating timelines that felt more like investigative reports than entertainment content by the time Part 3 was announced. The anticipation was already high. People weren't just expecting a continuation, they were expecting answers. They wanted clarity, confirmation, something solid to hold on to after all the speculation that had been building. But what they got instead was something completely different. Because Part 3 didn't just answer questions. It created more. The tone shifted, the implications felt heavier, and suddenly everything that had been hinted at before started feeling more intentional. It was like the documentary stopped being background noise and became the main event, and that's when the reactions really started pouring in. Some people praised it, calling it bold and necessary. They saw it as someone finally speaking on things that had been kept quiet for too long. To them, this wasn't just content, it was exposure that needed to happen, but on the other side, there was hesitation. People questioning whether this was really about truth or if there was another motive behind it. Because when you have a history like 50 Cent and Diddy do, it's impossible to ignore that context. Everything gets viewed through that lens, and once Jay Z's name entered the mix, the situation escalated even further. Now it wasn't just about one dynamic or one history. It felt like something broader, something that touched multiple layers of the industry at once. That's what made it feel so heavy. Social media reacted exactly how you'd expect. Timelines flooded with opinions, threads breaking down every second, videos popping up with dramatic takes. It was everywhere, all at once, and nobody could scroll without seeing something about it. And the biggest reason it spread so fast wasn't just what was said, it was what people thought was being implied. Because when information isn't fully clear, the internet fills in the gaps, and those gaps? They're where the chaos lives. And this is where everything stopped being just a documentary and turned into a full-blown internet takeover. Because the second Part 3 hit the timeline, the energy shifted instantly. What was already buzzing turned into pure chaos, like someone flipped a switch and suddenly everybody had something to say at the exact same time. At the center of that storm was 50 Cent, moving like a producer who just dropped the most controversial episode of a series and then disappeared to watch the reactions roll in. And let's be real, nothing about this felt accidental. The pacing, the tone, the way certain clips were presented without giving full explanations, it all felt intentional. Meanwhile, Sean, Diddy, Combs, and Jay Z were suddenly at the center of a conversation they didn't directly control. And that's what made it even more intense. Because when narratives start forming around people without them speaking on it, those narratives tend to grow faster than anything they could say to stop it. Clips from the documentary started circulating everywhere. TikTok edits with dramatic soundtracks, Twitter threads analyzing every line, YouTube videos breaking everything down within hours of release. It felt like the entire internet turned into one giant discussion panel, and nobody was sitting quietly. But here's where things got even messier. Because what was actually shown in the documentary was only one part of the story. What people thought it meant. That's where everything started spiraling. Interpretations began stacking on top of each other, each one slightly different. Each one adding a new layer to the chaos. Some viewers believed 50 Cent was exposing deeper industry truths, things that had been whispered about for years but never clearly addressed. They saw the documentary as bold, risky, and necessary. To them, this wasn't drama, it was a spotlight being turned on something bigger. Others weren't convinced. They questioned whether the content was being framed in a way that pushed a certain narrative. They wondered if this was more about personal history and long-standing tension than it was about uncovering anything new. And that doubt? It spread just as quickly as the hype. Then came the memes, and once the memes hit, you already know there's no going back. People started comparing the situation to WWE rivalries, saying it felt like a scripted feud playing out in real life. Others compared it to Marvel storylines, where each part reveals just enough to set up the next twist, and honestly, that's exactly what it felt like. Because the more people watched, the more they realized this wasn't giving clear answers. It was giving fragments. pieces of a bigger picture that nobody could fully see yet. And that's what kept everyone hooked on at this point. The conversation wasn't even about the documentary anymore. It became about the narrative surrounding it. Fans debating each other, choosing sides, defending their perspectives like they were part of the story themselves. Some stood firmly with 50 Cent, believing he was saying what others were too afraid to say. Others pushed back, arguing that the situation was being blown out of proportion and fueled by interpretation rather than facts. And then there were the observers, the ones just watching it all unfold, trying to figure out what to believe while the noise kept getting louder. Because every new post, every new reaction, every new breakdown added another layer of confusion. But here's where things took another turn. Because while everyone was focused on what was being said, people started paying attention to what wasn't being said. The gaps, the pauses, the moments that felt incomplete. And those gaps? They became the biggest talking point of all. People started asking deeper questions. Why present information this way? Why leave certain things open-ended? What's the purpose behind making people connect the dots themselves instead of laying everything out clearly? And once those questions started circulating, the situation shifted again. Now it wasn't just about the content. It was about the intention behind the content. And that's when things reached another level of intensity. Because when people start questioning intention, the conversation becomes bigger than the original topic. It turns into speculation about motives, strategies, and what might be coming next. And with someone like 50 Cent, that question hits even harder. And that's when the aftermath hit, and it hit different. Because what happens after a drop like this isn't silence, it's a ripple effect that keeps spreading, changing shape, and pulling more people into the conversation whether they want to be involved or not. The internet didn't slow down. Convinced that 50 Cent was exposing something deeper, something that had been sitting under the surface for years. To them, this wasn't entertainment, it was revelation. They saw every clip, every pause, every implication as intentional pieces of a bigger truth finally being shown. But on the other side, there was pushback. A lot of it. People questioning the framing, the storytelling, and whether this was really about uncovering anything new or just reshaping old narratives in a way that made them feel more dramatic. Because let's be real, when something isn't fully explained, it leaves room for interpretation. And interpretation? That's where disagreements live. Meanwhile, Sean, Diddy, Combs, and Jay Z remain mostly silent, at least publicly. And that silence, it didn't calm anything down. If anything, it made everything louder. Because when big names don't respond, the internet fills that silence with its own answers. Speculation started evolving into full narratives, people connecting past moments to present claims, building timelines, comparing old interviews to new implications. It felt less like a reaction and more like an investigation that had taken on a life of its own. And the longer that silence lasted, the more confident people became in their own interpretations. But here's where things got even more interesting. Because behind all the noise, there was a shift happening in how people viewed the situation as a whole. At first, it was about shock. Then it became about analysis. But now, it started turning into something bigger, a conversation about the industry itself. The documentary wasn't just content anymore. Question everything. And that's when the energy changed. Because once a story stops being about individuals and starts being about systems, back in different forms with new angles and new perspectives each time. At the same time, the ripple effects started showing in subtle ways, not dramatic announcements or big statements, but small shifts. It was like the documentary had opened a door and now nobody could ignore what was on the other side. And then came the unexpected twist. Not a new clip, not a direct response, but a realization that changed how some people started looking at everything that had happened. Because what if this wasn't just about exposing anything? What if this was about control? Control over narrative, over timing, over how conversations are shaped and when they're brought into the spotlight. Because if you think about it, dropping something like this at this moment, in this format, with this level of ambiguity, that's calculated. And once that idea started circulating, like a move in a much bigger game that most people couldn't fully see yet. And that made everything feel even more intense, because now the question wasn't just what was revealed. It became, why was it revealed this way? And that question? It doesn't have a simple answer, because while people were busy debating, analyzing, And trying to piece everything together, one thing became very clear. This story isn't finished. Not even close. The silence, the speculation, the unanswered questions, they all point to something still unfolding. And knowing how situations like this usually go, there's always another chapter, another drop, another reaction, another moment that shifts everything all over again. So now the real question was the peak of the chaos, or just the setup for something even bigger that hasn't been revealed yet? Now let's be real for a second. If you thought this was the end of the story, you clearly haven't been paying attention. Because situations like this, they don't just wrap up nicely with a bow like a Disney movie. Nah, this is the kind of drama that keeps unfolding, keeps evolving, and keeps getting messy every single time a new piece drops. And honestly, that's exactly why you're here, because nobody breaks this down like we do. We're not just watching from the sidelines, we're zooming in, connecting dots, and calling out every twist the moment it happens. And if part 3 already shook the internet like this, just imagine what the next drop is about to do. So go ahead and smash that like button like it owes you money, because you already know more chaos is loading. And don't just sit there quietly either. Jump into those comments and tell me what you think. Is this real exposure, calculated strategy, or something way deeper that people still ain't fully catching? Trust me, that comment section is. Watching all this drama unfold without being locked in. Nah, fix that right now. Hit that subscribe button. Nah, fix that right now. Hits that right now. Hits that right now. Turn on notifications and get ready, because the second this situation shifts, we're breaking it down first with no delays and no watered down takes. This is where the drama gets decoded. The chaos gets unpacked, and the truth? Yeah, we chase it no matter how wild it gets. Stay locked in, because you're watching Fame Blueprint.